I just wanted to ask if you would just tell us a story, because you were heavily involved in voter registration efforts during the civil rights movement in the 1960s, and that was in your home state of Georgia, correct?
Well, I was born in Chester, South Carolina. I lived here, but I did move to Albany, Georgia, where we formed the Albany movement, Southwest Georgia movement.
And would you talk a little bit about that? Tell us a story, if you would.
A gracious and warm and loving good afternoon to each of you. I was blessed to have been involved in the sit-in movement here in Charlotte. We led it February 9th, and the lunch counters, because we worked with the city council and asked them to set up a biracial committee. February 9th, and then the lunch counters on the street level were open July 2nd of that year. Went on to be invited to help organize the students who had been actively participating in the sit-ins, and Ella Baker convened a conference in Shaw University, May of 1960, and we formed the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And that became a vehicle that then began to organize throughout the rest of the South. One of the blessings that I had was, I was contacted by Harry Belafonte, who had heard about what we were doing, and invited some of us to come to Washington. He was performing at the Carter Bar, and, well, you know Harry, he's the man.
I don't know, but I take your word for it.
Right. And he wanted us to talk about the next phase of the evolving energy and movement that we had. And as we talked, it became very apparent that the social sitting at the lunch counter was nice, but the power was in the right to vote and elect and control your own destiny where you lived. So he challenged us to organize around voter registration. He also introduced me to Bobby Kennedy. And I had a session saying, listen, we're going down into the bowels of the South, where the Klan just has its way with you anytime. If you don't behave, they'll lynch you, put a rope around your neck. And so we want you to be able to come down if we need you. And we're going to be doing voter registration. We're going to be encouraging local people to register and vote so they can be in control of themselves. Sure enough, my friend Charles Sherrod and I went down to Albany, Georgia, and began to organize the Albany movement. I met Dr. King, went to jail with him a couple of times there in Albany and other places. But Sherrod's notion was this little town next door, the county, Terrell County, had about 70+% African-American residents, but nobody voted. The persons who would be in control of whether or not you could register, if you had, even the gumption to go down there and try, they'd, boy, how many bubbles in a bar of soap? All of them? No, that's the wrong answer. You can't register. So there were no black voters registered in Terrell County. Sherrod and I decided we got to go down there and do something about that. So there came a moment where we had organized enough, about 20 people, in a rural little church in Terrell County to come to a meeting so we could help encourage them to get the notion and the strength to try to go register. So here we are at this little church, about 20 of us. And we had a process where we'd have a lookout, someone who would look and tell us what was going on outside, of course. So we began the meeting And just as we were getting started, the lookout came and said, people, the sheriff and the deputies, and you know the sheriff is head of the Klan, and the deputies are active members of the Klan, they out there taking everybody's tag. And there was a hush. And we trying to figure out what on earth we going to do. The sheriff came to the door and said, y'all going to have to break up this meeting. It's an illegal meeting. And we are saying, oh my gosh. There was a lady right at 60. We noticed she started rocking. Before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. She stood up. Oh, oh, freedom. We all stood up. Oh, oh, freedom. She started walking toward the door where the sheriff was there. And we got to the door. She said, looked up at him and said, and before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Then she walked on out. We followed her, still singing. Oh, freedom, let the spirit join. Got outside. She said, let me tell y'all something. I was the midwife that pulled that sheriff out of his mama's body. I nursed him with my breasts, taught him the best I knew, and for him to think he gonna deny me my dignity before I be a slave. And we start thinking, oh my gosh. Long story short, that sister became the first registered voter of Terrell County. And voted the first time, and along with many others. Now, who the president of the United States is right now? Terrell County went overwhelmingly. So that spirit of that lovely lady is in my spirit, and now I share it with each of you. And don't let nobody tell you what you can't do. You God's child. Stand tall.
All right, Mr. Jones, thank you for setting it off. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.